Here this afternoon. I'm Andi Costello, as Brad mentioned. So a little bit about me. I, like a lot of people, grew up in California, in Southern California, and then went to school up in UC Santa Cruz, home of the banana slugs. We have no football team, but that's what we're famous for, is the banana slugs. And so then I went to grad school back east at Villanova, go Wildcats, and home of the Philly cheesesteak sandwich. Pat's or Geno's, if you've ever been there, two famous places for cheesesteaks. One uses actual cheese and one uses Cheese Whiz. I prefer with actual real cheese.
Is that in South Philly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And then from Pennsylvania, I moved to Arizona. I worked in Sedona, if you've ever heard there, medical capital of the world, self-proclaimed.
Is Snoopy Rock still there?
I'm sorry?
Is Snoopy Rock?
Yes. Yes. All the famous rock formations are still there. They don't go anywhere. And then after Sedona, I moved down to Phoenix, and there's nothing really photogenic about Phoenix. So you get Sedona, and then I moved back to California to a town called Lemoore. And this whole time I was in local government. I spent 15 years in local government, and my last role was a city manager in Lemoore, California, and it has a Navy Air Force, a Navy air station there. It's the only place in the country where the air actually replicates how the planes can land on an aircraft carrier. So obviously a lot of jet noise. And so I decided to leave the career last year and move where I always wanted to move, which was up here. And instead of waiting until I was ready to retire, I was like, you know, life doesn't, it's just passing you by every day. So decided to move up here and change careers and get into real estate. And so while I was in local government, I also served as a director of wastewater, which is why there's a toilet. So if you ever want to know what happens when you flush your toilet, I can answer your questions. I was also a director of Parks and Recreation. This is a photo from our pumpkin splash, one of our fun events where we just threw a bunch of pumpkins in the pool, and kids got to take it home. And then I was also a director of solid waste, so if you want to know anything about trash. So I've done a lot in local government, so if you ever have any questions about permits, zoning, how to go before a planning and zoning commission or city council, or want to run for city council, I probably can tell you, give you some advice on that. So during that time, I also got involved in real estate investing. So I bought a fourplex during the downturn in Arizona, and took that ugly duckling into rehabbed it, and still have that as a rental. So that was kind of my first start into realizing that real estate was of great interest to me while I was doing my other career. And like most people, you know, location, location, location is what's most important when you buy something. And obviously you want to buy low and sell high. That's how you make your money. You can't make your money thinking necessarily how much you're going to get in rent, because if you didn't buy it right, you're not going to make your money back. So today, I also own a local office of We Buy Ugly Houses. So I'll touch briefly on that. I'm licensed in Washington and will be working on getting my Oregon real estate license, and then also working on building a real estate team and partnering up with someone at Keller Williams where I gained my license. So people often ask, what is an ugly house? So this is an example of a house that I purchased in Vernonia and done a flip on. When I purchased the house, there was tons. They literally left in the middle of the night. They left all the cars. They left everything in the house. Just, that was it. So this is the condition that I bought the house in, and then this is when I finished the flip. And hopefully it'll be sold here in the next 30 days. So it was kind of an interesting adventure getting into that. So if you're interested in flipping, I'm happy to share some of my experience with you about that. So a little bit about our current market here in Southwest Washington. As you probably know, we are still in a seller's market, and I'll talk a little bit about what kind of time frame we're looking at for that. We have about 1.8 months of inventory, and so what a balanced market is about 6 months. If you have about 6 months of inventory, you're equal buyers and sellers. So anything less than that's a seller's market. You put something on the market, and it's pretty much going to go like that. And anything more than that means that we're in a buyer's market, so you can take your time. And we've been in a seller's market for several years here, and that's a combination of a lot of factors that I'll go into. And as of in February, we had about a little over 1,000 active listings. That'll probably increase a little bit as we get into summertime, and that's an active time to move. And we're almost at about 2 months of days on the market. And when you look at days on the market, you know, usually it takes about 30 to 45 days to sell. So even if you put a house on the market today, most likely you're still not probably going to close in 30 days. It'll still take you, you know, you might have some extensions, some financing issues. So 50 days is about, even in any market, is probably what it's going to take to close on a transaction. Right now, sorry. average days on the market from February 2017 was 68, and then in February of 2018 we're at 65, so days are getting a little bit shorter. Our median price was about 300 in 2017, and we're at about 370 in February of 2018. So you can tell that housing prices are continuing to go up, and first-time home buyers looking at 300 and below there's just not a whole lot on the market. Yes.
Is that, what is that per square foot?
We'll tell you that number right now. I knew somebody was going to ask me some specific numbers question, and so I brought the report from February. That's not something that they focus on in this report, but it's a good question. And I might have to wait till the end of the presentation, and then I will share with my numbers as soon as I can read it here. I will let you know. It's a very good question, and I don't think that the Clark County Association of Realtors provides that information on the report. But I can run it real quick and share that with you. But you're making me a better presenter by knowing the answer to that question.
Most likely, you're comparing apples to apples.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I did. It's all the listings are averaged together, regardless of square foot. So in economic news, which you might wonder, why am I giving you an economic update? Obviously, the economy affects what's happening to people interested in buying and selling. If our unemployment is high, people aren't buying a house. So it really impacts the housing market and what's going on. And last month, I attended a presentation by an economist from Washington, D.C. that came into town with an emphasis in real estate. And so he was talking specifically about what was going on nationally as well as what was happening local in our market. So I'm not making all these things up. I am sharing them with you from an expert that spends a lot more time than I do studying the economy. The economy, as you probably see now, is going to continue to grow as we get into the summer. We're still pretty much full employment. If you're looking to hire, you might realize that the quality of candidates is different than maybe what you've seen several years ago when we were in the downturn. We're spending a lot more money as consumers than we have since 2013, so people are continuing to take out student loan debt, consumer debt, and housing debt, which has its good and bad because at some point those bills are going to come due. Businesses are spending more money. Again, the economy is good. We've had some tax cuts and tax incentives from the federal government, stimulating corporate investment. The government is really getting involved into what we're doing, not only as homeowners, as you know that the tax laws have changed for homeowners and mortgage interest deduction, but businesses feel like they're doing well. So overall, the economy is doing strong. Is going strong. Interest rates are slowly rising. As you know, we've had some interest rate hikes this year. We're looking at another 2 to 3 interest rate hikes this year, which is going to continue slowly to increase, but might start driving down prices because as interest rates go up, the price of houses tends to go down. We've seen the tax law changes, so we might also see some of the very high price points in Oregon. Some of those people might consider moving over to Washington. For an average homeowner, probably not a big deal, but in states like California, Oregon, New York, Connecticut that have high tax rates, for people that cannot now deduct their interest, they're going to have some impacts on their taxes for 2018 that they'll file next year. Refinancings are going to go down because our interest rates are going up. So that is going to impact the mortgage industry and people that are in financing. And then our industry, or our region as a whole, is going to continue to grow. As you know, lots of people are moving here, just like I did myself. And baby boomers are continuing to live longer. So some of them are either downsizing or they're staying in their current homes longer, which means the inventory is not being fluid. We're not getting enough inventory because we also don't have enough new construction. We have 32 months straight of decline in new construction. So there's a lot of demand, but the builders don't want to get stuck with the inventory like they did during the recession. So they're just not building enough. And we have nationally millions of homes that are underbuilt. And so the home builders also are not building small homes because they can't make money on that cost per square foot. So they're continuing to build 2,000 square foot homes and larger, which some new starting families can't afford, and they don't want that large. So we've kind of got this push-pull in the economy between what the contractors are building and the lack of inventory and what people want to buy. Yes, Lee?
But it looks like in Clark County, every vacant lot is being built on. Right? So I'm not really following what you're saying here, unless that's just a national.
Well, it is national, but it is also local, because from the time a builder decides that they want to build something and they pull a permit, it still takes 12 to 18 months before that house can be occupied. So that's still, even if they go to the city council or they get their zone change and they get something approved, it's still going to be 12 to 18 months. And we have buyers today that want to move and they don't want to wait 12 to 18
So
months.
the existing inventory is not what it needs to be.
Right.
At this point.
Right.
Even though it's in the.
Even though you might see the construction, and they also don't want to get stuck holding the bag what we're building. So they want to make sure that the demand is there.
Andy, I'm sorry.
You're going to stump the chump today. That's okay. You make me better, Paul.
As a former city administrator, and as someone who's currently in the housing industry of flipping, buying and selling yourself, there's construction involved in that. Where are we in terms of other areas of the country in terms of permitting? What are the bottlenecks there? Or if you don't want to talk about that and talk later.
Sure. Well, I can speak nationally. I don't know specifically what's going on in Vancouver, but nationally, cities are increasing their regulation. So it's making it harder. Their costs are going up, so they raise the cost of permitting. They raise the cost of development impact fees, which of course gets passed on to the homeowner, which also raises the prices of homes. So there's a lot of pressure coming from the regulators that want to regulate and charge more, and then the pushback from the home builders that obviously have very strong building industry associations that don't want that. So I see both sides of it.
Doesn't that affect the turnaround time for permits to be issued also?
Yes,
But
yes.
that then has a greater effect on the lag.
Right, and depending on what the structure is of a local organization, you don't want to hire on staff to review those permits because you don't want to lay them off when you have a downturn. So smart communities contract that out because it's easier to, tell a consultant, we'll give you more work, we'll reduce your workload, because layoffs, as most people know, are no fun. So.
Andy, a question about trends. Obviously, millennials are still renting apartments rather than buying houses. So it's almost from looking at like we're still underbuilt in multifamily industry, are we?
No, we're not actually, because the millennials are at that age where they're ready to get out of the apartment and they're ready to move into homes, but there aren't any homes for them to move into. The baby boomers aren't moving out, so we don't have those homes that are in the market. We don't have builders building enough new homes. So they're kind of stuck in mom and dad's basement, or they're still stuck in their apartment. But at some point, the multifamily, it's saturated now. And I even look at the retirement homes that are getting built, the retirement communities, because I'm like, there has to be an actuary out there that has figured out what to do with those apartments. Because when the baby boomer population declines, what are you going to do with all these pretty much apartments or these senior living communities? Because they can't all be converted into apartments. I mean, you could do a lot of demo and make them apartments, but I think we're going to see that this next trend is going to be, what do you do with all this abundance of retirement living? Because you see it all over town. It's going up, and obviously there's a demand, but there will come a point where there's no demand, and then what do you do with it? How do you repurpose it? We haven't really seen that in our lifetimes, I don't think, of how you repurpose that. Something will happen to it, but I wonder what that's going to be. So, it's an interesting time in our housing, what's going on in the market, and will continue to be, and I think, certainly in our lifetimes we'll continue to see the growth and the infill of lots being used, and the building continuing to be strong here, but just not as fast as people would like it to be, or at the price they want it to be. So the economist, his crystal ball, he was forecasting for another 12 to 18 months, we're going to have a really strong housing market. And then we're going to be getting into kind of preparing for our next national election. Interest rates will have continued. We probably will have maybe 4 to 6 interest rate hikes between then. We're just not sure. The economy, obviously, we all know, goes up and down. We can't just be on a trajectory forever. At some point, we'll have to have a little bit of reset. So we just don't know when that is. The sky isn't falling, but it'll be interesting to see kind of what that looks like. So, with that, I could bore you, and I don't want to. So I wanted to do a little bit of trivia and pass out some sugar. Even though we had some good engagement today. So what's the best time? And I will give you some options to buy a house for home buyers or sellers. What do you think?
Buyers say winter.
Both.
I say spring.
Yeah, spring.
Tiffany. It is spring.
Oh.
March is usually the best. Who else said spring? Yep. Sorry.
It's all good.
Sorry. You said you didn't want any.
I said, buy would be winter because you don't have a lot of
a lot of sellers. So your inventory is pretty low. Yeah. So anybody, we've got a lot of smart people in this room. Does anybody know what the 3 best indicators are of real estate market trends? So we've got existing home sales, current sales prices, new home building, days on the market, mortgage interest rates, and the number of people moving to the area. And there's 3 answers. Ron?
I say D.
That is not correct.
Oh,
Yes, sir?
He's incorrect. I was gonna guess. I was gonna guess C, D, and F.
Okay. Getting closer.
Maybe F.
I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
Lee?
Mortgage interest rates.
That is one of them. We're getting close.
A, D, and E.
Getting closer. So the answer is existing home sales, new home building, and the mortgage interest rates. So when you look at what's happening in our market, you want to look at the home sales, what's happened, what prices, how many, because that's an indication of what's sold is how much's been on the market. Like I talked about earlier, new home building. So we don't have any homes being built, kind of is probably an indication of something's going on in the market if home builders aren't building because they can't make any money, because they can't sell them. Yes, sir?
Does new home buildings at the same as new permits?
Yeah, because you have to get the permit to build a new home, so yes. And then mortgage interest rates. So for people that were buying houses in the 80s, the housing market, and you had, what, 15, 20% interest?
20%.
Yeah.
I got a house in the 80s.
Yeah, so I've only read about it, but I was alive during that time, but I was not buying houses. So, the interest rates definitely have, we're still at historically low rates. I mean, people are like, oh my gosh, it went up a quarter. I mean, let's be honest, it's still a smoking deal compared to what it could be. But it freaks people out, and they're like, oh, that 1/4% is really going to drive up my mortgage payment. So, Eddie's not here today. He probably could answer this with odor mold. But what are the 3 most common toxins that you can test for in a home? Dr. John?
Radon, asbestos,
Asbestos and lead.
Mold, lead, asbestos.
Radon, lead, and mold.
Lead, asbestos, and
Fiberglass.
All right. Can you repeat your answer again?
For me,
Yep.
I said radon, asbestos, and mold.
Okay. You're close. One off.
Radon, lead, and mold?
Lead, asbestos, and mold.
Radon, fiberglass.
The answers are radon, lead, and mold. So radon is very common in this area. It comes up from the ground, and if you think that you might have radon, somebody comes in and brings in a device, sits there for 24 hours, and then it kind of, I think, is like a seismograph. It kind of measures what the levels are, and then you might need to have a fan installed. Lead paint. That's what you'd be testing for, anything built before 1978. And then mold. Obviously, we've got a lot of rain and what might happen. So not required to do before you buy a house, but depending on what you might find in a home inspection, you might want to have to take a look at those.
Andy, can I ask a question
Sure.
on that? If it's an older home in this area, say in the Camas or Washougal community, are they looking at a time frame that they would assume that asbestos would be in there as an insulation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what that time frame is by chance?
No, but I can find out.
If you have a hot flooding ceiling, be careful.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. And I know in Oregon, waste management now requires you to have your, if you're going to scrape like your ceiling, they require you to take a sample, send it to a lab, and make sure that it doesn't have the asbestos, because they're not going to want to take it to the dump. So definitely something that's becoming more common. So anybody have any idea what the most common street name is in the United States?
Maine.
Second Street.
It's 2nd Street. And it's 2nd Street because Main and First are common. And so if there was no Main or First, then, and they were combined, that would be the most common. But if you have a Main or First, then the next street would be a 2nd Street. So it doesn't really have anything to do with real estate, but just as you're driving around, you're like, oh, 2nd Street, that's a common name.
And Andi.
Yeah. So, anybody have any idea of what's one way to stand out if you're selling your house? You can hang a flag, put some plants,
Cookies.
or some cookies.
Cookies.
It's actually A. And this is anecdotal, so in fairness to all of you, you all probably deserve some candy. Because I was trying to actually find some stats on like, what's the thing that you could do? And not only support our country, but you have pride in your home, you have pride for your country, and so buyers, I think maybe subconsciously, in addition to the chocolate chip cookie smell, might feel more attracted. This is probably not something you need to do right now if you're going to list your house because our market's, very strong for sellers, but I thought that was something interesting that I actually didn't know when I started doing some research.
Maybe you can ask you a question.
Yes.
What do you do to stand out when you show a home?
So when I go show, like my own home, or when I go
If you were going to show, what would you do to make you stand out?
of my house, you mean?
Yes.
No, I'm not taking, okay.
Correct.
So what I would do is I would stage it. That would be something that I would either take I'm a minimalist anyway, so it's pretty easy for me. But I would take anything personal down, personal pictures, anything that might look like that's kind of a thing. Some people, and I would be very sensitive in recommending this if you have religious decor, taking that down. Some people, because you want somebody to imagine in their house, and if they're in there and they see something that's not them, then for some people that are visual, that's something very difficult. If you have any pets, make sure you try and get the pet smell out of your house. Because I have 2 cats, so some people are very sensitive to that. I don't think they smell, but I think other people can think that they smell. So trying to do what you can to mask or get rid of the smell. And then, making sure it's as bright as possible. So making sure your blinds are open, your curtains are open, so that when people come, the lights are on and they feel like it's a bright place that they want to be. So there's a lot of things that you can do, but you can't change everything, if you had pink walls, I'd probably say you need to paint them a more neutral color. Because again, if you don't have kids or don't have a little girl, some people just can't get past that,
So if you have 15 cars in the yard, but you have a flag up, it's going to be...
You might still be able to sell your house. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the value for some of the new people who haven't been here that I have found in professional connections just since I've been coming in January. Obviously, I think the networking is very powerful. And Dr. Tiffany, I think my first meeting was like, you should go have coffee with people and you need to network. And she said that to the group. It wasn't just to me, but what she said was true. And I met some very, very talented and diverse people here in lots of different backgrounds. And so I kind of wanted to tout about what I think is important about us all being here and the value and the knowledge that I've learned from other people in other industries and other businesses. And then even feedback on your business. I met with Paul, and we were emailing back and forth, and he's like, did you realize your phone number? And I was like, what? What about my phone number? And he's the one that gave me a great idea about my phone number. And I picked the number because it was easy to remember, not because I thought I could do something with it to market. And so I think that if you have not been taking advantage of the expertise and the knowledge here, I wanted to encourage people to do that. And then following Dan's good lead and ending with something a little humorous. I don't know if you can see it's a pinata, and I'm not sure that they're in the right place there.
South end of the northbound house.